Good day, everyone. I am Rene Alabiar.
I am Richel Aquino.
I am Joshua G. Banderado.
I am Rose Divine Valle.
We are the Group 1 reporters about the self according to philosophers. So at the end of the lesson, the students must have first, demonstrate knowledge on the different representation and conceptualization of the self from various disciplinal perspectives. Second, examined oneself against the different views of the self presented by various philosophers. And lastly, made a personal philosophy of the self. To start with, what is a self? So here is a really simple answer. I am a self, namely myself. You are a self, namely yourself. So self is defined by the different people of different times, and then they come up with their own understanding and have explained their theories about the self. So in this presentation, we will be talking about the 7 philosophies of the self according to the famous philosophers of all time.
The Philosophical View of Self by Socrates. Socrates is principally concerned with man. He considered man from the point of view of his inner life. The famous line of Socrates is know thyself. But before we proceed, what is know thyself? It is knowing who you are and what you stand for in life that can help you to give a strong sense of self-confidence. In order to be yourself, you have to know yours. Socrates is best known as the questioner of everything and everyone. His own style of teaching is known as Socratic method. So what is Socratic method? It is the dialogue between teacher and students, instigated by the continual probing question of the teacher, in a concerted effort to explore the underlying beliefs that shapes the students' view and opinions. And it was worked through critical thinking, reasoning, and logic. So let's tackle the 4 famous teaching of Socrates. The first one is, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. What does it mean? When you know all the answers, you are less willing to take risks, right? You are less willing to break from convention, and you believe your way is the right way, even the better alternative exists. Some people may find this idea a burden. But remember, my fellow students, sometimes biggest burdens are the burdens of knowledge. So the second teaching of Socrates is the wonder is the beginning of wisdom. So it means that curiosity we have in knowing and learning new things make us question things that we are already know and are generally acceptable. It is awareness that make us seek the truth and attain wisdom. Number 3. The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates means that an unexamined human life is derived of the meaning and purpose of existence. Number 4. The more a person knows, the greater his or her ability to reason and make choices that will bring true happiness. So to summarize that, it only means experience makes persons wise. For Socrates, every man is composed of body and soul. This means that every human person is dualistic, that he is composed of 2 important aspects of his personhood. This means all individuals have an imperfect and permanent aspect to him, and the body, while maintaining that there is also a soul that is perfect and permanent. Socrates believed that one must concentrate more on self-development than on material things. He encouraged people to develop friendship and love among themselves.
So now, let's proceed to the self according to Plato. The ideal self, the perfect self. According According to Plato, man is omniscient or all-knowing before he came to born into this world. With his separation from the paradise of truth and knowledge and his long exile on earth, he forgot most of the knowledge he had. However, by constant remembering through contemplation and doing good, he can regain his former perfections. Plato believes that ignorance is the root and stem of every evil, which means being ignorant is one of the things that holding us from being conscious enough to make a change and settle for second best. Every bad thing that has ever happened to mankind is from ignorant people who don't know any better and don't want to know any better. Plato supported the idea of Socrates that man is a double nature of body and soul. In addition to what Socrates earlier exposed, Plato added that there are three components of the soul. The first one is the rational soul. The thinking portion, located in the head, judges what is the true and what is false and wisely makes the rational decisions in accordance with which human life is most properly lived. The second one is the spiritual soul, located in the heart, in charge of emotion. Its function is to carry out the dictates of reason and practical life. The last one is the appetitive soul, located in diaphragm, is the portion of each of us that wants and feels many things. In conclusion, a human being is properly said to be just when the three souls perform their proper functions in harmony with each other, working in consonance for the good of the person as a whole.
So now, we will be tackled about the philosophical view of self by Saint Augustine. Similar to preceding philosophical views of self by the other philosophers, Saint Augustine also has his own philosophy. He believed that love and justice as the foundation of the individual self. For Saint Augustine, it seems that justice is the reordering of the loves within the self, so as to love to the right degree all that God had created, to which the fullest enjoyment of God is possible. The assigning each is due is the love that is due to all persons. Saint Augustine believes that virtuous life is dynamism of love. It is a constant following of and turning towards love, while a wicked life is a constant turning away from love. Loving God means loving one's fellow man, and loving one's fellow man denotes never doing any harm to another, or, as the golden principle of justice states, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. In simple words, treat other people with the concern and kindness you would like them to show towards you. This saying has come to be called the Golden Rule. Furthermore, St. Augustine's famous saying states that, "Thou hast made us for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in thee." He introduced the concept of free will, which means that humans are morally responsible for their actions. Reason is a human cognitive that comprehends deductive truth and logical necessity. He also creates a new concept of individual identity. The identity is achieved through a twofold process: self-presentation, which leads to self-realization. He believed that the body is bound to die on earth and the soul is to anticipate living eternally in a realm of spiritual bliss in communion with God. He said that longing lives within us until we find communion with God and experience His love. It is only in God that our restless hearts can rest. And we will know ourselves only through knowing God, because God is the one who creates us.
The philosophical view about self of Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes is a creative mathematician, a scientist who had a great contribution to the scientific revolution, a French philosopher that paved the way of the modern psychology, and famous in his saying, "I think, therefore I am." He trusted nothing more but the human power of logic that made him to discover the concept of dualism. For Descartes, the human self is composed of two distinct entities, namely human mind and the human body. For Descartes, the mind is superior to the body, for it is in the mind that mental states occur. This is because the mental states such as thinking, imagining, and analyzing, rather than the physical state of the body such as pain, hunger, and thirst, are fundamentals in our life as persons. Thus, for Descartes, the mind is the real self. Clear thoughts equals good decisions or outcomes. Descartes argued that in order to attain the best decision in life, one must have a healthy mind. Misused mind. Descartes believed that most of the bad happenings in the world is caused by the misusing of the minds. Thus, Descartes famously say, "Cogito ergo sum," or in English, "I think, therefore I am." So in Descartes' opinion, we can never be certain about anything, including our body's existence. For instance, I cannot be certain that I am here reading my report. I certainly also can't be sure about the existence of material things in front of me, because there might be an evil deceiving me into thinking that I am right all the time. So Descartes' conclusion for this is, even if we doubt everything in front of us, we cannot doubt the thing that lets us doubt everything around us, which is the mind. Because we think we exist, we do exist. Also because we think we are reading, talking, or eating, we do read, talk, and eat. So this brings us back to I think, therefore I am. So to answer the question, what am I? Descartes come up with an answer, a thinking thing, or a being that doubts, understands, asserts, denies, wills, imagines, and the like. So in conclusion, Descartes asserts that the mind and the body are distinct. The mind and the body are different opposite. In this case, the mind houses our understanding, intellect, and passion, while the body is just a shape that has different sizes that showcases motion. So bodies do not have an understanding and minds do not have sizes, shapes, and even movements. So for Descartes, the mind and body are not related. For example, if I was in a car accident and I lost most of my body parts, including my eyes, legs, and arms, that doesn't mean that I will lose my ability to think. That just means I lost something from the physical part. But even if the mind and the body are not related, they are connected in some way because the mind needs to be reflected through the body to accomplish an activity. So for example, if you want to turn on the bedroom light, you have to walk into the light switch and turn it on using your hands because it is impossible to turn it on by just thinking about doing it. So once again, it is our mind that Descartes described as the true self. Within our mind, we can think, and because we think, we are able to say we exist.
Personal identity of John Locke. So John Locke speaks about personal identity and survival of consciousness after death. He holds that personal identity is the matter of psychological continuity. He considered personal identity or self to be founded on consciousness vs memory, and not on the substance of either the soul or the body. The issue of personal identity. It is always been of concern for many philosophers. Questions are raised as to what does being the person that you are, from one day to the next, necessarily consist of. Personal identity theory is the philosophical confrontation of own existence. Such are who are we, and is there a life after death? The synchronic problem is grounded in the question of features or traits characterize given person at one time. So the personal philosophy of John Locke is against the Cartesian theory that soul accounts for personal identity. Locke held that personal identity is a matter of psychological continuity.
Sigmund Freud is an Austrian neurologist, psychologist, physiologist and the father of psychoanalysis, which is used to treat psychopathology or symptoms that are psychological in nature. He is famous for his saying, "The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water." So meaning, the conscious part of our mind is just around 1/7, and most part of our mind is composed of unconscious. Freud believed that the mind is responsible for both conscious and unconscious decisions that it makes on the basis of psychological drives. So the id, ego, and superego are the three aspects of the mind Freud believed to comprise a person's personality. Sigmund Freud's construction of self and personality. So the first one is the id. It is pleasure-seeking, immature, impulsive, childlike, and cannot delay gratification. It is also first to develop after birth or mostly present in our unconscious or the part of our mind that we are not aware of. So basically, the id is driven by the pleasure principle, which strives for immediate needs, wants, and gratification. So imagine trying to convince yourself to wait until lunchtime to your meal. And if we are ruled entirely by the pleasure principle, which is the id, we might find ourselves grabbing the things that we want out of other people's hands to satisfy our own cravings. The second structure of personality is the ego. So ego works on the reality principle, controls and satisfies the demands of it in a safe and socially acceptable way. So it is also mostly present in the conscious and partly unconscious. So for a clear understanding, Freud compared the id to a horse and the ego to the horse rider. So the horse provides power and motion, while the rider provides direction and guidance. So without each rider, the horse may simply wander wherever it wished and do whatever it pleased. So the rider gives the horse directions and commands to get it to go where the rider wants it to go. The third structure of personality is the superego. So it is the conscience or an information about things that are viewed as bad by our parents and society, and a moral act of judgment. So it is both in the conscious and unconscious mind. So in short, the superego tries to perfect and civilize our behavior. It works to suppress all unacceptable urges of the id and struggles to make the ego act upon idealistic standards rather than upon realistic principles. So note, ego's role is always the equalizer between id and superego. Always keep in mind that ego is the only one who is having the feeling of anxiety. So an anxiety plays a role in helping the ego mediate the demands of basic urges, moral values, and the real world. So what is an anxiety? An anxiety is an unpleasant state accompanied by the physical sensation that warns the person about an impending danger. So when someone is experiencing different types of anxiety, defense mechanisms may kick in to help the ego defend and reduce the anxiety he or she is feeling. So what are these defense mechanisms and what does it mean? So defense mechanism refers to strategies that we use unconsciously to protect ourselves from anxiety arising, unacceptable thoughts or feelings. So the examples of defense mechanism are the following. The first one is the denial or the refusal to recognize a threatening situation. And the second one is repression or pushing of threatening situation out of memories. The third one is sublimation or turning socially unacceptable urges into socially acceptable behavior. In conclusion, in Freud's view, a balance in the dynamic interaction of the id, ego, and superego is necessary for a healthy personality. So the problems within an individual's personality often comes from conflicts between id, ego, and superego, and as well as on the defense mechanisms that he or she was using. So in order for an individual to acknowledge and resolve those conflicts, he must be first aware on his repressed memories emotions, or any traumatic contents so that he or she will adopt an adaptive attitude both toward the past, the present, and future, which is the heart of psychopathology, making the unconscious conscious.
So, this time, we will discuss the philosophical view of self by Gilbert Ryle. He said that man need not be degraded to a machine by being denied to be a ghost in a machine. So let's have a deeper discussion about it. What is Ryle's ghost in the machine? According to Ryle, the classical theory of mind, Cartesian rationalism, makes a basic category mistake by attempting to analyze the relation between mind and body, as if they were terms of the same logical category. Cartesian rationalism holds that the mind is distinct from the body and therefore mental states are separate from physical states. Ryle refers to the idea of a fundamental distinction between mind and matter as the ghost in the machine. Also, Ryle said that the body and the mind are ordinarily harnessed together, but after the death of the body, the mind may continue to exist and function. Gilbert Ryle was a British philosopher who opposed the Cartesian dualism of mind versus matter. He coined the phrase, the ghost in the machine. He explained that there is no hidden entity called the mind inside a mechanical apparatus called the body. Self is not an entity one can locate and analyze, but simply the convenient name that people use to refer to all the behaviors that people make. The behavior that a person manifests in his day-to-day life. The last part that we will going to tackle is the level of awareness. The self and their understanding has 7 levels of awareness. The first 4 levels are 1. Basic awareness. It is an ability to integrate sensations from the environment with one's immediate goals and feelings in order to guide behavior. 2. Self-controlling awareness. The ability to control your own feelings, thoughts, and actions. 3. The intuitive awareness. The ability to feel and respond. 4. Fulfilling awareness. In this level, we are already satisfied of ourselves or achieving self-fulfillment. We are all aware that every person is born with the first level of awareness, but has to strive in order to reach the higher levels and finally attain complete awareness.
So now, let's have these questions for your reflection. Question number 1. How do you view yourself? Number 2. Whose philosophy is more convincing for you? And number 3. What is your personal evaluation on the song Who Am I by Casting Crowns? The song Who Am I by Casting Crowns and the song Sino Ako by Jamie Rivera are the songs to unlock one's self. So as we try to figure out our true selves, we should also keep in mind where this song comes from, Sino Ako and Who Am I, which is about the heart of figuring out who we are in God's eye. Let me quote a word from Bridget Nicole. I am who I am, not who you think I am, not who you want me to be. I am me. Thank you so much for listening to our discussions, and I hope that you've learned something from us. Have a nice day.